We're working through these different icons, and these are what you're going to be vectorizing for this project. Now, the book is only going to go through the first 3 icons. Each one kind of uses some different techniques to work through. However, when you download the symbols, let me see if I can find my symbols thing. Yeah, when you download these symbols, there's at least 8 different symbols that you'll be working with. You got your biohazard, your cold. Here's one for getting your hand caught in a machine. For disabled, there's the fire, magnets, all the other ones as well. Some of these are going to be a little more easier to vectorize than others. Some will require certain tools, and some will require just a combination of tools. Today I'm going to go over kind of how vectors will interact with each other. In the next class, I'll go over a little more on using the pen tool and the pencil tool and how to do specific vector drawing. Here's the first thing to realize when working with these. Whenever you create vectors, they have to interact with each other in a certain way. The first way they'll interact is kind of how they interact with the artboard and how you can align different things. Let me unlock what I'm working with. When you create these, we're going to align all of these to your artboard page. I'm going to copy these, paste them into what I'm working with. I've got 4 different vectors. Come on. There we go. Let's zoom in. Did y'all figure out what the keyboard shortcut for zooming in is? It's a good Command and the plus sign. Plus and minus will zoom in and out with that one. That's a great one to remember. Here's another one to remember. If for whatever reason you've accidentally scrolled all the way off the page and you've lost yourself, you don't know wherever you should be at, Command and 0 will zero you back in so you can see wherever you're working. So I've got 4 objects that are on my page. And if I wanted to move these around, one easy way of doing it, of course, I can click and drag to do this. But what I would like to do is to kind of treat them all as one particular object, especially if I was drawing an object that's made up of multiple things. So let's say I started drawing a smiley face. Yeah, we'll keep them something like this. There we go, and we'll give them a curly smile. So there's my smiley face. Cool? If I wanted to move him around, well, I would have to either click and drag over all of them, or I could hold down what key to select multiple objects? What's my keyboard shortcut for selecting multiple things? Shift. Hold down Shift and you can select and add on to your selection. If I've got a lot of things on here, sometimes that becomes a little bit more complicated. It's very difficult to select several things if I've got other little objects that I don't want to select. So what I would like to do is to be able to treat these as one group of objects. Same way if I had 4 of these up here, I want to treat all of these as one line or one group of objects. Here's how you can do it. If I select the objects that I want, under the Object drop-down menu, Group is what we're working through. With them grouped together, now when I'm with one click, I can click and drag these around and work just like this. Here's the other way to think about this. All of the objects are in a certain stacking order within their layers. I'm going to open up my layers palette. Here it is down here at the bottom. Right now, usually by default, we're working on one layer, but you can create multiple layers in Illustrator. If I click the down arrow, I can see all of the objects that are created on this particular layer. For instance, here's the group of this objects. Here's all the different rectangles that are up here. I can even open up the group and see that these are made up of, there's my curved line, my circles, filled in that way as well. So the first way of thinking of the objects that you create in Illustrator is think of them as groups of objects, groups of different shapes that you're creating and moving around. Since I'm working in layers, I can also change up their stacking order for different things. Let's say I change the color of this one. Now for those of you who finished up the quiz, what's one way I can change the stacking order of different objects? What's that called? Was that covered on the quiz just yet? That may be the next one. Okay, I'll tell you. It's
brackets.
Command brackets. What is that? What am I doing?
Arranging the order.
The arrangement, exactly. Arrangement is the stacking order. You can see I've got a green on top of a red on top of an orange. Well, let's say I wanted to send the green behind everything. Under Object, look for Arrange, and here's the Bring Forward and Send Back. And you're right, the keyboard shortcut is Command or Shift and Command in the bracket keys. If I sent this all the way to the back, it would be behind everything else that's from there. The other types of arrangement, I can step it forward just once, and so it'll come in front of one object or the other. And if you pay close attention to the layers, you can see the layers are also changing up. So if I bring the green forward one more time, Object, Arrange, bring forward, you can see now the green is on top of this. That's one way of changing it up. The other way is you can actually click and drag the layers within your Layers panel. If I wanted this bottom one to be brought all the way to the top, I'm going to click on this layer, and when I drag, you can see I get a hand, and wherever I let go between the layers, it will change up their stacking order from there. Pretty cool? So that's that as far as working in groups and working in layers. By the way, if I wanted to break the group up from here, I can go to Object and ungroup them. What's the keyboard shortcut for ungrouping? Shift Command G. Very good. The arrow is Shift. Once they're ungrouped, excuse me, you can see they're no longer in a group in my layers, and I can now treat them as individual objects. So let's move on. How can I arrange these objects on my page? How can I space them out so they're nice and even with each other? This is one thing the book is going to cover, and I always get some difficulty in doing this. We're going to take it one at a time. Whenever I select an object, of course I've got a little bounding box that goes around them. I'll select this one so we can see it. I've got outer points, and I even have a middle inner point that tells me the exact center of my object. Whenever I place them on the page, however, I can tell it to be aligned to the page, either aligned to the top, the sides, or even the center of it. I've got this selected. Let's see. I'm going to choose my regular selection tool. I don't see my transform on here, so I'm going to open up, actually, excuse me, not my transform, my align palette. Here it is here. Here's my alignment from this one. With it selected, I can tell how I want it to be aligned. First thing I need to do is to tell it where to align to, and I don't see all my options. There we go. I had to double click and I've opened up the rest of my options. Down here, Align To is a very important option to look for. If you don't see it, that's how I can open it up. Right now, if I chose it, I'm going to align to my artboard. Remember, the artboard is the area that we're printing. From here, I can tell it where I want it to be aligned to. So for instance, if we got this up here, if I want it to go all the way flush to the edge, you kind of get an idea of what it looks like. There it is, flush to that edge. If I selected multiple objects, I can have them all automatically aligned to that edge as well. Pretty cool? If I wanted it, say, to be at the very edge and the top, I've got it selected. We're still aligning to the artboard. There's the edge, there's the top, and there I've placed it within that one as well. Let's see, I believe the transform will give us some more options to work with. Very good. Under the transform options, now this will allow me to tell it to place it specifically in one particular area, my X and my Y coordinates. One thing I don't see are my rulers. I need to turn on my rulers at the top and off to the sides. So to do that, if you need to find something, usually it's under View. There's my rulers. And I can show my rulers. Command R is another good one to see. So there's my X and Y coordinates. Right now, what's my X and Y coordinates for this? What does it say? 0.75, 3/4 of an inch. But wait a minute. I've got this right here at the edge right here. Why is this 0.75? What's exactly at 0.75? The center point. It's aligning this based on the reference point, which is the center of my object that I have. Check this out right here. These are my reference points, and I can change where they should be. So if I wanted this to be aligned to the top left reference point, I can choose that. Now you can see it's zeroed up. So if I wanted to nudge this down, say 1/4 of an inch, I can now type in 0.25 for my X and Y values, and it will nudge it down based on that one. So it's very important to understand where your reference point is. Bottom right, left, so on and so forth, because that will depend on the size of your object and where your object is from there. Pretty cool? Okay, so let's continue on. If I needed to individually align these up, so let's actually put the green one quarter of an inch off to this side. I've got it selected. What should my reference point be? Should it be the center or should it be the sides?
Top right.
Top right. Let's do the top right. So from here, I want it to be negative quarter of an inch. What happens if I type negative 0.25? Nope, it's all the way over there. I've got to actually know the points on my ruler. So what's a quarter of an inch away from the edge of my page? How wide is my page? 8.5. So what should it be? 8.25. Half of an inch from there. The height of it, of course, from the 0, so that'll still be 0.25, and there it is from there. These are perfectly aligned with each other, quarter of an inch. Now let's perfectly align the rest of these. Whenever I place something on here, you probably notice this, the little green lines are appearing. The green lines are called your smart guides. Sometimes they get in the way, but sometimes they can be very, very helpful. You can see as I move it, a green guide is telling me that I'm lining it up from one edge to my center point. And so if I click and drag and I see it's aligning up from one center point to the other one, I know they're automatically in the same row, same column. If I wanted to, I could select multiple ones here. Let's use our alignment panel to do the same thing. This time, instead of aligning it to my artboard, I'm going to align them all to my selection, keep them all selected. If I wanted them to be aligned vertically along their centers, when I click once, now they'll all jump and snap back to the center, perfectly aligned this way. But what happened when I did that? What did I lose?
Height.
The height. What do you mean by the height?
Or it's lower down the page.
It's lower, the distance, yes, it's moved down the page. Very good. So I need to go back and I need to realign that. 0.25 will move everything back up. The final thing, and this is what I really love about the Pathfinder, I use this a lot more. Let's say they were completely wonky, they were all off like this. My starting point and my ending point was perfect, but these are kind of getting off. I want these to be evenly distributed amongst each other. So if I have them selected, we're going to align to our selections. These second objects will allow me to distribute my objects evenly. It will take a little bit of understanding, but you can see the horizontal distribution. There will be horizontally distributed evenly. With one click right here, you can see now the spacing in between the two will be exactly the same. And this will come in handy if I have multiple objects. Let's say I added on another couple of objects, and I wanted all of these to be evenly distributed. I can select them, choose distribute evenly, and even though they're overlapping, they're actually evenly distributed this way. If I had multiple sized objects, let's make some of them thicker and thinner. We'll have some really, really thin ones and make one thick, and let's get rid of this one. If I chose this, chose to distribute them evenly, does that look like it's even to you? What's wrong with it? Why do you think it's evenly distributed? Bingo, it's your reference point. Notice that it's the horizontal center points are evenly distributed. That's another thing to pay attention to is if I aligned it to their left or their right center points, it will move them over. So centered is kind of relative to whatever point that you have selected as well. Of course, if they're all the same size and you do your distribution, it should be exactly the same distance from there. Pretty cool? You're about to, if you haven't experienced that yet, that'll come up in the project that we're working from. The last thing I wanted to show you was the Pathfinder tools and how you can join together multiple objects. I'm going to start off with something very simple. We'll just use some straight lines and I'll draw these lines off. Remember, we're working with vectors, and so the vectors are just making one point and connecting it to another point. But let's say I wanted to connect these two lines together. There's a quick way of doing it. I'm going to choose my selection tool. First of all, we need to select the two lines that we want to link. So I'm going to select both of these. Under Object, down to Path, the first selection is to join them, Command J. When I select those, you can see it will join up those 2 points. We'll do the same thing for the next one. Object, join, and it joins up those two. Command J, We'll join up those as well. But what do you notice about when they're joining together? Let's say I wanted to join this one with this point down here. If I was to select them and do Command J, well, it automatically chose it to that one. Why did it choose this one?
It's closer.
It's the closest one. Automatically, by default, it will join the two closest points together. But if you want to tell it to join one point with the other, you've got to be able to select just those 2 points. This is where your direct selection tool comes in, the white arrow. I'm going to select this point. It's only the one that's linked up. Hold down Shift and select that point. Those 2 points are selected. So now when I do my path and join, those 2 points are selected as well. So as I select the points that I want, I can tell it exactly where to go. Join, and then finally join up. We'll say those 2 right there. Clicked off on that. From here, this is where I would also use my direct selection tool to refine my edges, do whatever I need to change those up as well. Pretty cool? So there's that. That's the joining. The final one is Pathfinder. This one I have a lot of fun with, although Illustrator's got a better tool we'll use in the next project to work with them. If I've got multiple objects and I want to create a compound object, let's say I got a circle, we'll do a black circle. Let's do a red star. Something like that. We'll keep it as simple as this. If I wanted to have the compound or the intersections between these two shapes combined together, Pathfinder will allow me to do this. And you kind of get a preview of what it will look like whenever I use these. So for instance, the first one will unite or combine both of these. With one click, now I've got an outline of both of them and they're joined together. I've lost the intersection between the two. With the other one, this will minus the front. So whatever's in front here will cut out, knock out the back of that one. So I've got a complex shape that looks like this. And you get an idea of what the other ones will do as well. The only thing to remember are the bottom ones down here. Whenever I select these, I click it once, it looks like nothing really happened. And if I try to click it, these have become grouped together. So if I wanted to break these apart, after clicking these, I actually have to ungroup them. Ungroup. Now I can click and you can see they've actually become split apart like a cookie cutter. And I can use these objects as needed. So how's that going to help you out for this particular project? Let's actually load up some of the there we are, some of the icons that we'll be working with. Symbols. Y'all bear with me for a second. Let's go to my desktop. Mr. Ivy. There's symbols. So if I'm looking at some of these different symbols, let's get a bigger icon to see. What do you see this is made up of? What basic shapes? Yeah, circles. I could probably recreate this, or at least a good portion of this, using just circles. What basic shapes do you see here? Lines, rectangles. I can make that up just using lines. This one's a little more complex. I do see circles and maybe I see a few rounded rectangles, but this one's going to require me to do some freehand drawing. This one, do you think this is easy or difficult? Easy, pretty easy if you know what basic shapes that's making it up. So as you're working through here, like I said, some will use more complex things, some will use less complex. Tell you what, I'll work through this one. Let me show you how, if I was to create it, I would use the Pathfinder to do this. I'm not going to do a good job, but I'll give you something to think about. Lock it down. Since it is made up of circles, let's see how many circles I can use to recreate this one. First of all, I see a circle here in the center. And then I see another circle that will make up the outer edges of this. And so we'll move it down. And we'll say right about there. Let's make it a different color so we can actually see what we're working with. Bring it forward. There we go. So if I've got these two different circles, I can use my Pathfinder. I need to cut out the red from the yellow. So if I chose this one, there it is. It's been cut away. And I can place it on here. If I needed to cut out this one, this is where maybe I could use, I'll use another circle. Choose these two and I can cut away with that one. Now I've got that particular shape already created. Since that shape is repeating, all I've got to do is take it and rotate it, fit it into place. Pretty cool. Of course, I haven't done a good job. I need to do the center points as well. Hey, let's see what I can do with that one. What happens if I hit Pathfinder? Let's make a circle in the center of it. I'll make that one yellow so I can see what I'm working with. Select everything that I have. I'm going to hit the first Pathfinder. Remember, this one is going to cookie cutter it, so I need to ungroup them. Once they're ungrouped, it's simply a matter of erasing away what I have to see what I need. Of course, it looks like I made that circle a little bit too big, but y'all get the point. I can refine my edges and work this way. Y'all go away, I'm having fun. Pretty cool? That's the essence of what you're doing. Now, what I want you to do, don't try to jump in here and try to recreate all of these. The book is going to show you exactly how to think about working with these different objects. And it's very important that you pay attention to how these are created. Once you get these 3 done, then load up the rest of them. There should be 8 total, and place all of those in there. I'm looking for you to do all of the icons that they sent you. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to give you the rest of the time. We'll work through here. I'll stop recording.